been about a year since I've made a Marine Corps video, essentially since hitting the fleet after graduating Naval Justice School. I have been stationed in Quantico, and I've been hesitant to make Marine Corps material because being in the fleet has taught me a lot of things. And it was early on in my time at legal assistance that I learned higher up officers can be skeptical of young lieutenants who put themselves out there too much. You know, they don't really know who you are. They don't know your MO, and you don't want to come off as someone who seems like they know all the answers, right? Like you've got all the solutions or you are some infinite wisdom. And I have never tried to portray myself like that. Hopefully that's been very clear to those of you who have been following my YouTube channel for the last 8 years. You know that this has really just been about documenting, right? And the last year, I've been working as a legal assistance attorney in Quantico. And this video, as the title suggests, is about that experience. I want to do this video because, unbeknownst to the Marine Corps, a lot of their JAG recruiting is actually done via social media. And I've had so many attorneys reach out to me, practicing attorneys, law students, people who are interested in the Marine Corps who say, hey, your videos have been some of the most helpful things I've encountered since going down this path of wanting to join the Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps doesn't even appreciate how much of a recruiter I've been. You know, I talk to people in Instagram DMs, LinkedIn DMs, phone calls. At this point over the last year, I've started to have people who I've been talking to, and I won't necessarily say mentoring, but have at least been part of their decision-making process, are now actually graduating OCS, headed to TBS, graduating TBS. So that's been extremely rewarding. But we are here to talk about my first year in legal assistance. And really, it's only been 9 months that I've been in legal assistance. I got to Quantico in November of 2024. And as of August 25th, 2025, I have moved out of that billet. I'm recording this video. It is September 21st. I wanted to record this video a long time ago, but I haven't really had the time because switching billets it was a very last minute decision. I got told August 22nd that I'm changing billets, and I've got told to report to my new billet August 25th, right? So I have been trying to adapt, and expeditionary warfare applies to lawyers as well in the Marine Corps. So you got to go where you're told, when you're told. I want to start off this video with thank yous, right? The most important thank you I have to make in this video is to Mr. Chase. Mr. Chase has been my director at legal assistance for the last 9 months, and he has been one of the best mentors any Marine Corps JAG could ask for, and really any attorney could ask for to start their legal career. The amount of lessons that he's imparted to me, his kindness, his intellect, what he's taught me about writing, what he's taught me about officership. And the most important thing has been the idea of being a counselor at law, right? And that's going to be something we talk about later in this video. And so I want to say thank you, Mr. Chase, for all you've done and all you have imparted on me. Also want to thank Miss Haley, who is our paralegal. And I want to give some special shout outs to my Marines, Corporal Martins, Lance Corporal Wenzel, Sergeant Ballou, Lance Corporal Orlandi. Thank you guys for all you guys have done, all the good memories we share, the laughs, the smiles, the jokes, and all of the hard work and camaraderie. Semper Fi. Next, I have to thank the officers that I've worked with. Lieutenant Childers, thank you for being my early mentor and teaching me the ropes of legal assistance. Lieutenant Poggle, thank you for being the first Marine that I hit the fleet with. And Lieutenant Zoberman was my first officer in charge. Thank you for that. More recently, Captain Dameyer and Lieutenant Weiss. If any of you guys are ever watching this, thank you guys for all the good memories. So I want to start this video by talking about the different lessons that I've learned being at legal assistance, and I have some notes that I'll be reading from. And then I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of legal assistance, and then I'm going to move on and talk about the things that I would like to improve. And mostly these are just notes for myself, and what I mean by things that I'd like to improve, just kind of like takeaways from my time in legal assistance. I don't think I can fix the Marine Corps. I don't think I'm super knowledgeable or anything like that. These are just things that I want to remember because I don't know where my career is going to go, and I would like to be able to look back at this video and remember what I was thinking at the time I was done with legal assistance, right? So that's the thought here. No one get it confused. All right, so the first lesson is that of being a counselor at law. And this was something that, as I've already said, Mr. Chase was really big on instilling in us. And the idea of being a counselor at law is just this constant reminder in the back of your head that sometimes you're going to have hard conversations with clients, right? And you you owe them not just your legal advice, but also your counseling, right? And having hard conversations and showing them the right thing to do. Because a lot of what we do in legal assistance is people are coming to us at some of their most difficult times, right? They are having a landlord who's wanting to keep their security deposit, or they're getting divorced from their spouse, or they've just had a loved one pass away and now they realize that they need a will, or they need help trying to execute their will, and or maybe they have an immigration problem, right? Or maybe they bought a car that they got screwed over on, right? There's so many things that they're coming to you with, and a lot of them are in an emotional state. So being a counselor at law is this idea that you owe your clients not just your legal knowledge, you owe them guidance, you owe them advice, and sometimes having the hard conversation is, telling them things that they don't want to hear, telling them uncomfortable truth, advising them not to take certain courses of action, especially when you talk about things like divorce, where people get very emotional and they, maybe they want to try to get back at their spouse, or they want to, cut their spouse off from entitlements and things like that, right? Counselor at law is being the voice of reason and being the voice of honesty and maturity, right? For the most part, officers in the Marine Corps are viewed favorably, but being a lawyer in the Marine Corps and also being an officer is a different type of responsibility, because there are no other billets in the Marine Corps that require a doctorate degree to be in that billet, right? If you have a medical doctor, they're going to be in the Navy or something like that. So being a JAG is a very special position, right? And people really trust you. They think that you should have everything figured out. They think that you have your life together, whether you do or you don't, but they really trust you in the things that you're saying legally. And Marines are smart, right? Marines are very much able to smell out BS. Even though the Marine Corps generally has kind of this reputation of being like crown eaters and oorah semper fi, right? Generally speaking, Marines are very high EQ. And so if you are trying to bullshit Marines, they will be able to sort of smell it out, and they won't trust you. And so being that counselor at law is having the ability to tell a client, hey, look, I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not going to try to make something up. I'm going to have to consult with my coworkers and colleagues, or I'm going to have to do research and get back to you, right? Or telling clients, hey, look, you're in a really bad position. There's probably very little that I can do. I will do everything that I can, but I would suspect that even me doing my maximum effort, you kind of have a losing position here, right? Those are kind of hard conversations to have, but that is what you have to do as a JAG. The second biggest lesson, and this is one that anyone who's thinking about joining the Marine Corps, and even just as I will one day watch this video again, I hope I can always remember, is client management. The lesson of client management is probably the most important lesson that one can have as a legal assistance JAG in the Marine Corps, right? Because the first day you walk into the office, you've never had a client, you've just got done with a year of Marine Corps training, OCS, TBS, and so you've probably never really flexed your legal muscles, and you haven't even had to really use that part of your knowledge base for over a year. And so you get to legal assistance, and the first day you're going to start seeing clients. I remember that feeling, and I remember like having conversations with Poggle, just being like, oh my gosh, I feel so overwhelmed. I have these clients who they need me, they are expecting me to have all the answers, and I'm, scared, to be quite honest, right? You have a level of fear, but obviously you are equipped. And that was what was nice about having Mr. Chase, was I never felt like I was out there just alone. I always knew that if I had questions, I would be able to just let clients know, hey, look, I don't know the answer to that right now, or hey, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to want to double check that with my director. And it was so nice to always have that security blanket, because I knew that there was only going to be so little or so much that I'd be able to get wrong before Mr. Chase would kind of catch it along the way, right? And so, but client management isn't just about being a counselor. It's about setting expectations. You're going to have upward of 70, 80 clients that by the time you hit the fleet as a legal assistance officer right off the jump. These are clients, you don't know their backgrounds, you don't know where they've been in the process of being with a Marine attorney, right? Because you're going to be replacing someone most likely, so they've already been seeing a Marine. And your clients come from all walks of life, right? They can be enlisted, they can be general officers I've got to work with, everywhere from PFC to 4 stars. I've worked with everything in between, which is really crazy to say that, as a lieutenant in the Marine Corps, you can have worked with such a diverse group. And it's the reason why I do think that legal assistance, all things said and done, is actually the best billet in the Marine Corps. I'm obviously biased, but I get the feeling that I will feel this way even many years from now. I think that the opportunity to do good work and the opportunity to every day I would go home feeling like, hey, even if I didn't help someone right then, I was able to relieve some of their stress just by having them be able to talk to me about their problems and be able to try to come up with a solution for them, right? I've had clients who came in thinking their marriage was over, and by the end, things don't end up that way, right? I've had other clients where they're in toxic relationships and they need to get out of their relationship, and you're able to be that guide, that emotional stability for them, and kind of let them and assure them that, like, hey, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Here's what we need to do. And it's really nice getting to work with other Marines after you've sort of been through the Marine Corps pipeline, because there's this commonality of how you talk to each other and how you can be focused on mission and focused on getting over objectives, right? And solving problems and being adaptive. And I think one of the hardest things about being a Marine Corps JAG is getting past the formalities of rank, right? I remember that when I first hit the fleet, I was always, very uncomfortable if I was talking to someone 04 and above, and I would notice that junior Marines would feel very uncomfortable talking to me, right? And so you learn over time how to just connect with people, and yes, rank matters. And it's very important that we maintain good order and discipline and respect for the rank structure, but you have to be able to break through those barriers, especially when you're talking about solving people's problems, right? And so there is this idea in the Marine Corps of billet over rank. And so when people come to you as a JAG, they're coming to you because of the billet you are in, right? And you do have something to offer them, and you need to be able to not only present as competent, but also be able to level set with them and respect the rank structure, but also make sure that they understand that you have an expertise that they don't have. And so that kind of relates to client management, but you also need to be able to set expectations, because I remember when I first got to the fleet, I would have a client come in and maybe they had a landlord-tenant issue, and I would think, hey, I can, I'll get a letter out by the end of this week. A demand letter is what we call them. And I was wrong, right? It would take me maybe 2 weeks to get this letter out, because you never know what fire is going to walk through the door. And that was one thing that I come to appreciate after 9 months of legal assistance, is like, you think you know what your day is going to be that day. You might go into the office at 08 and be like, hey, look, I'm going to get started on working on this issue before I see my first client at 9, but then someone comes through the door and they've been waiting since 7:30 because something has gone wrong in their life and they really want to talk to a JAG. Or after you come back from chow, you think, hey, I'm going to get started on X, Y, and Z, but something else comes up and you have to be able to flex and adapt. And so setting expectations, I think one of the biggest things that I got kind of used to was under promising and over delivering. So I would set people's expectations like very, very broad, I guess is the best way to say it. So if you came to me as a client, I'd be like, hey, look, it's going to take me 4 to 6 weeks before I can get X, Y, and Z to you. Because if I set that expectation and then I deliver in 3 weeks, you're going to be like, wow, like Lieutenant told me it's going to take him 4 or 5 weeks. He actually got it done in 3. And people really appreciate that. They appreciate the honesty. You have at times probably 100 clients that you're working with, and you have to triage the clients in terms of who has the legal fire, right? Who has the biggest issue. The next lesson is getting creative, and getting creative is something you have to get used to as a Marine Corps JAG, because when clients come to you as a JAG, by and large, you are not going to be able to represent them out in town because you are not going to be a barred attorney in the state that you are stationed in, right? And as a Marine Corps JAG, you can only provide legal assistance within the scope of what the Marine Corps has said you can provide legal assistance for. You want to do a lot for your clients, but you have to get creative. Okay, so I'm going to get into the pros and cons section. This should be pretty short. The number one pro is that being a legal assistance attorney for the Marine Corps is, in my opinion, the best billet in the Marine Corps. Because when people come to you, they're coming to you for a problem. And no matter what's going on in your own life, if you show up to work with a attitude of I'm going to give my all to my clients, you will leave every day feeling like you have made people's lives a little bit better. Even if you aren't able to solve their problems, you are still able to take a weight off their shoulders and sometimes just be a listening ear to people who are going through something hard, and commiserating with people, right? That's of extreme value. And I don't want to say the counselor at law has this element of like being a therapist, especially when you talk about divorce and family law, right? But there's also an element of being an officer and having Marines who are coming to you with a problem and being able to give them advice based off your own life experiences, or give them advice based off of, your maturity, because as a JAG, most Marines are under the age of 26, 24, something like that. And as an attorney, you're probably going to be at least 25, 26 if you're in the Marine Corps as an attorney. And most of the JAG officers are older than that, 28 about, I would say. And so, yeah, you leave every day feeling like you truly got to help people. Another good pro of being in legal assistance is that it's not as time demanding as some of the litigation billets. At least that's what I have kind of seen. Like, I had the opportunity to be a platoon commander for a while, which was probably one of my favorite parts of being in legal assistance, because I really got to PT with the Marines, get to know the Marines, spend time with them, and really get to know them as people. And that's how you get to know them and they get to know you. And so one of my biggest kind of complaints with Marine Corps JAGs is that some of them are more focused on the law part of things and not as focused on the officer part of things. And I think that Marine JAGs need to be involved in the Marines' lives. They need to care about their mental, spiritual, familial, financial welfare. And that means you got to get out there and do the things with them that they have to do, like show up to unit PT, right? I'm a big believer in PTing with the Marines. And so that's something that I think is a pro of being in legal assistance, is you have the opportunity to do that. And you also have time for family. A lot of the billets in the Marine Corps are very time demanding. And I would say if you're an 03 or something like that, when you're out in the field, you're really going to be taken away from your family. And I think pilots go through this a lot. I think comms officers go through this a lot. A lot of different billets where you don't have as much time with your family because you're out training, being forward deployed, and JAGs can be forward deployed too. But the point is that your occupation requires you to be out in the field for long periods of time. And as a legal assistance officer, your billet does not require that. So when my son came to visit me this summer, I was able to go have lunch with him several days during the week. I was able to drop him off at daycare, pick him up from daycare, drive him home, be home in time to make dinner, have time to hang out with him and spend time with him. And I think that's one of the best parts of being a legal assistance attorney, is you do have time for family, and there is a bit of balance in your life, right? That's other billets you may not have. And then another pro of being in legal assistance is by the time you are done as a legal assistance Marine, you will know at least 1/3 of the base, or 1/3 of the base will know who you are, right? Because Marines have problems, and when they have problems, they go to the JAG. And if you're able to do good work for them, they talk to their friends about you, right? Like, it got to a point where Marines would come to the office and they would request to have me as an attorney because I was able to help their friend or something along those lines, right? And those are the things that feel really rewarding. You feel like you are part of the community. You're kind of like the lawyer on base, one of the several attorneys on base, and that has its own like kind of special role. And you really get to know Marines. Like, I would go to the gym and I would see my clients, and sometimes it's a good thing, right? But sometimes there's a bad thing, right? Is you really get to help people and you build relationships with people, and I think that's really cool. The biggest con, in my opinion, of being in legal assistance is that it's not litigation. And I think a lot of people are drawn to the Marine Corps because of the promise of litigation, or at least I was. I don't know if that's everyone, but you're definitely drawn to the Marine Corps for the opportunity to do very serious legal work very quickly and have a lot of responsibility very quickly. Like, I don't think there's any other job you can walk into other than the military where your first day on the job, you will have upwards of 40 clients right off the back, and those clients belong to you. You don't get that sort of experience in the civilian world, right? They are your clients. It's your name on the documents. That is, very unique. And even if you want to start off in litigation, you start off in legal assistance, you just kind of have to wait your turn, because I promise you will get the at bat. You will get the opportunity to do litigation. And I know that that's what a lot of people look forward to. Okay, so this last section, again, I've probably already said this, but I don't think I have all the answers. I don't think I'm like some Marine Corps guru, right? But there were certain things that I noticed working in legal assistance that I wanted to make record of. And I thought about writing an article about these things, but I decided that that was going to come off as too pompous or too sort of like, this guy thinks he knows everything about the Marine Corps. A lot of people feel this way whenever you talk publicly about the Marine Corps, and I understand why, especially as a lieutenant. But here's the thing. I did learn some things. There were some consistent trends about being at legal assistance, and I wanted to talk about these things mostly for myself, because who knows, maybe one day I'll be a lieutenant colonel or a colonel or whatever the case may be. And I wanted to be able to go back and think about what were the things that I was constantly seeing in legal assistance. And the first thing was the order of support. We call it the LSAM, the Legal Assistance Manual, right? And it is a very long document. And part of that document, it talks about when Marines separate from their spouse, or if a spouse makes a complaint to a command about a Marine not paying, what is the command, or not supporting their dependents, what is the command supposed to do? And this is there's sort of two sides to this, real talk, right? On one side, you have Marines who are able to hide behind the Marine Corps and avoid having to take care of their family. Now, that is exactly what the Marine Corps has come up with this order to prevent, right? That's my understanding, at least. I could be wrong about that. But I would say that almost never happens nowadays. I think that is like something that doesn't happen. You are not going to be able to hide behind your service and get away with not taking care of your dependents. Like, Marines get really crafty, especially when like they're getting, maybe they're like on base housing, and then they go through a separation. So they move into the barracks, and then they don't write BAH. So then they don't have to pay as much money to their spouse, right? And so you might put dependents in a really bad situation. But what was much more common, in my opinion, and I would say this was much more the case, was the order of support was being weaponized against Marines. And so, like, you might have a spouse who was largely responsible for what was going on, right? Maybe they had fled the state with the children, or maybe they had cheated on their spouse or something like that. And then they were turning to the command and saying, he's not supporting me, or she's not supporting me. And then you had a Marine who would be in a really bad financial situation, because maybe they were living off base, so they're getting BAH, but maybe they're a corporal, so their base pay is not that high, and really they're living off their BAH. But if they have half of their BAH being sent to their spouse, or even, if they have a child, then it's going to be 2/3 of their BAH being sent to their spouse. You get a situation where Marines can get put in really bad financial positions. And I saw that much more often than the other. And I know that there's no easy answer to this thing, but I do think it's something that there should be more time spent trying to craft that order, so that you don't put Marines in really bad financial positions where they're having to pay 2/3 or 3/4 of their BAH to their spouse, but they also have their own rent, and they also have maybe 2 or 3 car notes, whatever the case may be, or 1 or 2 car notes, hopefully not 2 or 3. Yep. Okay. So Along those same lines, I think that the Marine Corps should find ways to offer prenuptial agreements to Marines as a service. I understand that there are a lot of complexities behind why you can't do that or why that may not be um, an ideal situation. And part of it is, you know, the Marine Corps is very traditionalist in many ways, right? And so I think that maybe prenups are viewed sort of negatively as on a cultural level. However, I think that the Marine Corps also incentivizes young junior Marines to get married very early because they put them in really bad barracks that are filled with mold and different things. And so then Marines are like, yeah, like let's get married. We have been dating for 3 months. We love each other. And it doesn't work out sometimes, right? And sometimes it does. But I think that if we offered prenuptial agreements as a service, I think Marines would use it because I've had Marines who've come in asking for that exactly. And it's like, hey, look, you're smart for thinking about that way, but I'm not actually able to do that for you. Along those same lines, and my understanding is that some bases do this better than others, but I do think it'd be nice if the legal assistance community did more presentations to the different battalions and units. And battalion commanders should honestly make their Marines go sit through a presentation from legal assistance so that the Marines are forced to know what services they rate, because a lot of Marines problems could be like prevented if they had sat with a lawyer before the problem arose, especially with things like landlord tenant, right? If you had a lawyer read through your contract before you signed your lease, you could probably solve a lot of issues that way. They'd be able to spot, hey, this is a really weird term right here, or hey, this tenant is trying to get you to, or this landlord's trying to get you to do something illegal, like waive your Service Member Relief Act rights within your lease, right? So just different things like that where Marines don't know, or in buying cars, right? Marines are notorious for buying vehicles from used car dealerships, and they find themselves in really bad situations. I've had several Marines who buy a car only to not get clean title to the car. I've had Marines who buy a car just for the car to break down maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. Marines who buy cars, $60,000 cars, and their entire compensation package is maybe $30,000. So like just different things like that, where if Marines had attorneys reading their documents before they were executing, you'd probably solve a lot more problems. I also had this note about military star cards. I don't remember exactly why this was something I wrote about. Essentially, those military star cards are like, they're like loan shark credit cards. And essentially you like sign away your child's like leg by signing up for a military star card. So I do not recommend these things. And I don't remember exactly why I wrote that down. I wrote it down some time ago. And the most important thing, and this one I'm passionate about, I think the Service Member Civil Relief Act should be written so that there's more bite to it. And what I mean by that, particularly around landlord tenants, too often what happens is Marine enters into lease, Marine needs to break lease because they've received orders, Marine moves away, Marine follows all of the steps needed for the Service Member for Relief Act, and then the landlord seemingly happens to find damages on the property that equal the exact amount of the security deposit. And by and large, these claims that I've seen, the common trend is the landlords come up with these damages that are above normal wear and tear, because normal wear and tear is not to be included in taking out of security deposits in most states, right? And so they come up with this number that happens to be the exact amount of the security deposit or maybe a little bit more. So then they try to make the Marine feel like, oh, you're getting a good deal. We're not going after you for the other $1,000 that we allege we could go after you for. But then Marines will have move in and move out photos that show very clearly that this landlord is either just absolutely lying and being fraudulent or really incompetent and extremely misguided. And the Marine has already moved away. And so you can write the letter as a legal assistance attorney demanding that the landlord actually pay the Marine or give the security deposit back. But if they refuse, the only thing the Marine has left in their ability to do is actually go to court. And that's going to require them to have to fly back to the state numerous times or find civilian counsel out in town. And for the most part, in order to even hire an attorney out in town, you're going to pay more than what the security deposit even was, right? It's like $5,000 retainer fee for an attorney. Security deposit was $3,000. So even just hiring the attorney to go fight for the $3,000 isn't worth it to them. On top of, you know, the flight, the time, the effort it would take for the Marine to go fight it. And so I wish that there was way more bite. I don't know how you do that, but you do it through federal law, in my opinion, something that makes landlords much more fearful to do grimy things like that. Like, I don't know what it is, but you got to create more bite in the SCRA. I think that would be really cool. And so, okay, this video has gone much longer than I had expected, and I really just wanted to make this primarily for the sake of prosperity, for myself to be able to go back and look and listen, and as I continue to go through my professional journey, just continue to hopefully grow and see where I was at different stages and what I was thinking about and what I was doing. But also for the up and coming Marine Corps JAG. Hopefully this is going to set some expectations and help you get a better understanding of what you'll be doing and why you should be wanting to do it, right? And so my biggest lesson of all of this is take care of your Marines. Actually care about your Marines, get to know your Marines. Do not treat your Marines pedantically. Your Marines, especially in the 44 community, they all have like the highest scores to be in this MOS. They're all extremely smart. They all love their country. That's why they signed up to be in the Marine Corps. And so caring about them and pouring into them in terms of what they want to do in their lives and their careers, and not being so concerned about what you want to do and what they can do for you, I think that's the biggest lesson that I could give to any lieutenant who's about to hit the fleet. And so hopefully this video was valuable to anyone who's watching. As always, like, subscribe, share, comment below, reach out to me. Because of my new billet, I've recently made a lot of my social medias private. Maybe it will stay that way forever. I don't know. Maybe I'll make them public again. But for now, if you add me on LinkedIn, I will likely accept and we can talk there. Or, you know, just shoot me an email. People have been able to find my emails various different ways. And my phone number is also out there. So people do find ways to get in contact with me. And by and large, I respond. Like, I think everyone who's ever reached out to me talking about the Marine Corps or wanting to talk about the Marine Corps, I've responded to. And so, Semper Fi. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.